Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today with my friend Kaylee and I. We are going to be talking to people about people-focused performance reviews. And I know some things about reviews, but also I thought it might be helpful to have somebody who is a specialist, somebody who knows this inside and out. And so we invited our friend Kaylee to come and chat with us here today. So let me go ahead and ensure I am sharing the screen and doing all the things. While we're getting things set up, Kaylee, here's the question for you and then for everybody who is attending our webinar today. You're in Wisconsin, correct?
So our office and our manufacturing facility are both in Wisconsin. I'm technically in Minneapolis, but I feel like I reside in Wisconsin at all times in some way.
Noted. Well, I'm in Kansas City, and what I was thinking might be fun is so in the chat, share with us, but like, what is the place, whether it's the city or the state that you're from, known for? Like, what's the food that is associated with or known in the place that you are at? So you can go Wisconsin or Minnesota, I guess, but what is the place that you live or work known for, Kaylee?
Great question. It will probably come as no surprise that cheese is going to show up if I'm talking about Wisconsin. It is stereotypically our food, and it is also actually our food unless there's like a dairy intolerance, which is really tragic to be in Wisconsin and not be able to have dairy.
Yes.
But then the sub controversy is, do you go with the squeaky cheese curds or the fried? I cannot deal with.
What do you prefer?
I can't deal with the squeaky cheese curd, so it is fried for me.
I mean, I've not met a cheese curd I don't like, to be entirely fair.
Very valid.
Yeah,
very valid. Yeah. How about for you?
I live in Kansas City, so barbecue is probably no surprise as to what we're known for. But specifically, if you've never had burnt ends, you will enjoy them. It's they are crispy, they are buttery, smooth, and they're incredible. They're my favorite food. If you look at my Leadr profile, you'll see that burnt ends is definitely the favorite food. So we'd love to hear from those of you who are hanging with us today at the webinar. Go ahead and shift your chat. I think it starts on hosts and panelists, but if you click it over, if you toggle over to everyone, then we can all see what your favorite food is or what the place that you live or work is known for. So yeah, definitely barbecue in Texas. Our home office at Leadr is in Texas, and I live in Kansas City. So there's this constant debate of whether Texas or Kansas City has the best barbecue. I have my opinion, but we'll let it lie. Okay, so we'll let it lie. Tex-Mex and burritos, Nashville. Man, I love some hot chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo wings. Okay, so Carolyn, drums or flat? We got to know, or the full wing. You know, what is what's the wing choice? Are you a fan of wings at all, Kaylee, or no?
Oh
Flats,
yeah,
she says.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just got distracted by tacos in the chat because I just can't have enough tacos.
100%. So sometimes with friends or with family, be like, hey, if you had to choose one food to eat for the rest of your life, what would be? Which is kind of a random question, but there it is. And often the response is tacos, because you can have them for breakfast, you can have them for lunch, you can have them for dinner, you can have tacos a million different ways, and they're always delicious. So, all right, brats as well. Okay, so fun fact is that I actually was born in Rockford, Illinois, which is almost Wisconsin. I mean, it is like north central Illinois, almost Wisconsin. And I'm a huge fan of brats. So we actually, like, every year for my birthday, we would boil them first and then grill them to finish them off, but a whole thing. So
brilliant.
Wait, salmon and coffee, Christine, tell us more. Salmon and coffee, but not usually together. I've never tried salmon and coffee at the same time. I'm missing out. Something I need to do here.
Usually feels different.
Like
I need more
sometimes,
information.
yeah, sometimes I do them together, but not usually. Just if we're feeling wild. Just if we're feeling wild. All right. Well, thank you for. Oh, it's in Seattle. Okay, I got you. On the coast there, and coffee makes sense now. Yeah, makes sense. Well, let's hop into the webinar. We could talk about all sorts of different foods and what to eat as we go. But let's take care of some housekeeping things first, Kaylee, and then let's get to the goods. Okay. So first thing is if you're in the chat, make sure you toggle it to everyone so that everybody can interact, and feel free to make comments or ask questions as we go. Kaylee and I really want to ensure that this is helpful for you, that you're getting out of this what will be helpful to you. And so we have things prepared that we think will be helpful for you, but if you can ask questions and guide us as we go, we'll either answer those as we are in the process, or we will definitely have time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to put those in there, and then we will connect with you there. One of the other things is that as we are in this webinar, the goal is that you would just take one thing from this webinar. So there's a whole lot of things we're going to have conversations about, but I don't know about you, Kaylee. Sometimes I go to conferences or attend webinars or whatever, and it's like, oh, there's so many good things that we could do. And when I really just focus on what's the one big thing, the one thing I can apply as quickly as possible, if I can do that over and over and over again, that's what actually leads to the best development and growth. So that's our hope for you all who are attending or watching, that you can just take one thing from this webinar that you can apply that's going to help you in your performance reviews that are people focused here moving forward. And then last but not least, feel free to reach out to your customer success manager after the fact if there's anything specifically that you want to chat through here. Or if you aren't a customer and want to have further conversations, great. Feel free to send us a note. But we will send out this recording as well as plenty of links and resources to other tips and topics and articles after the fact for you to take a look at. So that's kind of the ground rules, kind of getting some of those things out of the way for our conversation. But here's what we're going to be chatting through today. We're going to make some introductions to you and I, and then we're just going to talk about some different parts of effective reviews, and then we'll just get into Q&A. But this is really going to be more of a discussion. Does that sound good for our time, Kaylee?
Sounds perfect.
Rock and roll. Well, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I will introduce myself.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Leadr Reviews. I work for a company called Dairyland Electrical Industries, and we are a designer and manufacturer of an electrical safety device. So just to kind of put it concisely, otherwise I would have to defer to our engineering and BD teams. But yeah, we really protect against corrosion, against stray voltage issues, really have this vision of making a safer world, certainly through products, but also through this idea of business as a force for good. How do we have business and its kind of unique abilities and potential benefit employees and team and community and world, as well as industry. So I lead. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's awesome. Business as a force for good. Yeah. Does that connect to, like, you have a really unique title? So does that inform what your title is or how your title came to be?
Yeah, we had kind of a big turning point about 6 years ago where I would say our values had always been true and important to us, but we just really wanted to be clear about them. And there was so much that our employees, I don't think, were fully invited into about this bigger purpose for the company related to local engagement and global engagement. Sure. And so I rejoined Dairyland at a point where we were ready to try to work through those questions and that messaging and the kind of programs or structure that would support that for our employees. So really trying to look at how do we take those values and integrate them throughout the company. And it's a fun challenge. Good.
Yeah, nice. Well, how long have you all been Leadr customers or been a partner of Leadr?
Great question. So we joined the Leadr community last year, and we this is kind of relevant to today's topic, just did our second round of reviews. They wrapped up at the end of last week. So it's really fresh for me and for our
Nice.
team, and excited to share both things that went really well and things that we're continuing to learn to iterate on.
Cool. Well, excited to chat through those things. Let me introduce myself real quick and then let's get into it. Okay, let's get into all
We
the
want
juicy
to know
tidbits.
Dan.
Well, I am Dan Cogswell. I'm the Director of Customer Growth here at Leadr. And basically that means everybody, once they become a partner, I get to help lead the team that resources them, that helps to ensure that we demonstrate value through our tool, and helps to set our partners up for success and outcomes connected to Leadr to help them get to where they really want to go. So those are the things that I get to do. So you'll see I have some prompts, like some questions on these slides that are coming up, but we may or may not hit all of these. We're just going to get into them. Okay, so Kaylee, let's do this thing. First one is this: reviews. Why are we doing reviews? What's going on with reviews? Because I don't know about you all, but I know that some people quit doing reviews during COVID, and then haven't really picked them back up, or reviews are like a checkbox of things, or, so kind of talk to us a little bit about why reviews, why are they, why are they worth doing, and why are we having a conversation about them?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. I think it's one we can just skip over, but is worth double clicking on. I mean, I don't know if you have ever been in an experience, Dan, where you are not getting any feedback and you're sort of forced to mind read unless you're willing to ask a potentially uncomfortable or direct question.
Sure.
And I think that we can live with this question of like, how am I doing? I have my own experience of how something went, but we know that humans do not think the same way. We can jump to very different conclusions. We have things mean different things. Things mean different things. Words, actions mean different things. And so I think a huge purpose and benefit of a review is that it brings clarity and it brings alignment. And I think that it actually has a lot of potential to build trust and to bring connection, even if a conversation is a hard one where you're talking about, hey, this needs to change. So much is missed if you don't have the conversation. And I think you can get really far down the road of assumption or misunderstanding, or just not delivering on results, despite the best intentions, if you don't have that intentional conversation.
Yeah, I love how you, one of the things that you just noted is that by effectively being brave enough to say the hard things, or the things that need to be said in a kind way, is that it can create trust and connection. Versus letting people just live in misunderstood intentions or challenges that are not connected. So I really appreciate that idea connected to why it's worth doing.
When you might, sorry, I'm gonna jump in.
No, go ahead, please.
You might know more data on this, but I think that what we're seeing too is that millennials, but even to a greater degree, Gen Zers, are looking for faster feedback. So a review isn't going to check all of those boxes, but I think that it is one of several touch points that communicate, I see you, I am invested in you, I want you to feel invested in. Here's some clarity about where things are really at right now.
Yeah, great point, Kaylee. It is a really big shift. Think about it practically. So millennials, Gen Z, anybody who's younger, and actually at least half or more of the workforce currently has either adopted or grew up in a space where there's constant feedback all the time, because there's social media, there's constant answers. If I have a question, I just Google it. Literally, it's a verb, right? Like, so it's just, we have ability to access feedback and information really, really, really quickly. And so when that experience doesn't happen inside of the workplace, it's really confusing. It's like, hey, I'm used to being able to get information or access to feedback, or do people like it or not like it or whatever in a moment. And then we get to the workplace, and sometimes what happens is as leaders or as directors or managers, we haven't necessarily done the work of providing consistent coaching of things inside of one-on-ones where we're growing, what goals we're working on. And then we get to a review and it's a big surprise, or it's a big shock of, wait a second, we haven't talked about any of these things, and then you're hitting me with this in a review. So yes, we definitely see that, and it's definitely more prevalent in what's happening with people. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving to this next question then. This is similar but different. So this is maybe a more direct question, but are reviews worth the time and the effort?
It's a great question. I mean, the first question that comes to mind to ask back is kind of, what is the impact of not having them? And similar to what we've just said, if you don't have a touch point, and you're not doing something like one-on-ones or giving feedback in other capacities too, right, there's a lot more potential to go off in a different direction that maybe doesn't align with your team's goals, the broader company goals. And so I just wonder, you could argue there's a lot of ways to give feedback, and maybe a formal review isn't the way. I happen to think it's a really valuable element. But to not have any kind of conversation like that, I think opens up so much potential for missing each other and for getting off track. And so that's the first thought that comes to mind. Curious what you would say as well to the same question.
Yeah, I appreciate your question back to the question, but I agree that having your word is touch points, another word would be like really kind of these mile markers, right? Memorializing, hey, the things that we've been talking about, or the projects that we've been working on, just taking a moment to say, how did we do? Where have we grown? And hopefully those are moments that you've engaged in, as you've said, feedback and one-on-ones through the process, and you get to this moment and say, where are we at? I think sometimes a tendency is there's a lot of different ways to approach feedback and organizational health and reviews and all of those things. But more often than not, when I talk to organizations who don't currently have reviews, what I hear is the process we have is cumbersome, hard, no one looks forward to it, it's just checking the box, et cetera. So there's kind of that bucket of responses. Or it's the, well, we have a really sometimes like organic or relational or familial organization. And so as long as things are okay or good, then we don't necessarily need reviews. And I think that the caution there is that if you're landing on that, in that bucket of, well, we're good, we give, kind of consistent care or focus or feedback, is that you're probably not saying the things that you need to say. You're probably avoiding some things that you need to be clearer about. And for me, I'm curious to get your take too, Kaylee. When we don't give the feedback, we're robbing the team, we're robbing the people that we're helping to lead of an opportunity to grow and develop.
Yeah.
And we can care for them, but there's a difference between caring for someone that leads to growth and just caring and not necessarily saying the hard things. So I know I kind of rambled there a little bit, but thoughts or reflections.
No, this is good. Yeah. This is really good. Totally agree on that sense of robbing. I think it can be hard, especially if your kind of personality leads you to be really uncomfortable with conflict. I would say that is like a natural thing that I have to resist actively. Sure. But I think when you can reframe it, you realize by withholding this information, I'm just copying you. Withholding the information doesn't give them the opportunity to better understand themselves, better adjust, better be prepared to be successful in the future in your organization or elsewhere. And if we truly have this perspective of wanting to richly invest in our people, and I think you want everyone you're leading to be more positively impacted. You can't just offer the encouragement and the praise and the kudos. Those are so important, but they have to be balanced out. I would want to be told about my blind spots where something
Yeah.
didn't quite miss the mark, where it didn't
Hit
quite
the
hit
mark.
the mark. There we go. Thank you. And one other thought that just came to mind to your earlier point was that I think when we're in the moment and we're offering, let's say you have an organization that isn't doing reviews, but has kind of organic, quick feedback, that is really important. But I don't know if you've ever gotten to the end of a year and done a reflection on your year. And there is so much that comes out that I miss when I'm kind of in the middle of the activity or the change. And so I think there are things that become clear, whether those are positive patterns, problematic patterns, something that just took a long time to evolve and grow that are more likely to be noticed in a review and called out.
Yeah. Really good thoughts. It reminds me of, I was just doing a training with a new partner of ours and some of our team earlier this morning. And I made a comment. It's more of a tongue-in-cheek comment, but to your point of wanting to really richly invest in your team and your people, like, I don't know of a single person who wakes up in the morning and makes a conscious decision that is, I really don't want to lead well today. I really don't want, I want to make sure that my people don't feel appreciated. I want to do things that disengage my team. I want to lead in such a way that I am demoralizing to others, or not helping them feel seen or grown or develop those things. I sincerely don't know of a single person who is intentionally making that choice every single day. The challenge then is, even though that is not, we'll assume, most people's intention, that can often be the impact because we aren't willing to have those really clear conversations around, this is what's going well, we see this is great, and here's an opportunity to improve, here's a place that we can grow, and holding the balance of those things. And so it's this difference between intent and impact that I think sometimes we get stuck in. My wife is a professionally licensed counselor, so I couldn't do that job. It's incredible. But one of the things that she said, and I don't know if she stole it from someone else or not, but is we measure ourselves by our intentions and others by their actions.
That's good.
So how do we make those things align? How do we help those things get closer together? And I think one of the ways that we can do that is by engaging in reviews. They don't have to be overly complicated, but engaging in reviews that help us to really help people see things clearly and be really kind in that. So let's get into more of like, well, I stole it, so it's good. So let's get into maybe some of the more like tactical things related to reviews. Some of what we've been talking about has been more philosophical or reviews in general. Let's talk about them, but let's get into some of the more tactical pieces. And I'd love to hear more in these spaces. For you said, hey, here's some of the things that we've learned that went well. Here's some adjustments that we've made. So feel free to speak to those as we go here, Kaylee. Okay. Great. So first one is reviews. How often would you recommend that people do them?
Yeah, we do them twice a year, and that's been really a sweet spot for us. I would say even covering 6 months, it's easy to forget things. To go a whole year, just at least for us in our context, feels like, man, last November was forever ago. And and so I think it's just helpful for us to turn that around more quickly. While then you could say doubling the effort, it's actually, there's less content to draw from. You're more also in a rhythm of, how do we do this process? And
doesn't feel like you have to relearn it every year, right?
Right.
Okay. So a couple of times a year. I know for a lot of our there's a lot of people that we work with that follow like EOS, or more like quarterly, kind of here's goals and rhythms, and we do quick reviews of those things. But it sounds like doing reviews is better than not doing reviews, if I'm hearing you correctly. And like multiple times a year could be helpful versus just one time a year. for the reviews. Am I hearing you correctly in those things as recommendations, what you found to be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just affirming having them is, even if you're going to do it imperfectly, having it is better than totally avoiding it. And then I think and I'll speak more to this, but we try to gather feedback from employees after they do a review cycle. And they have said, I really like having this twice a year. So I've heard it from their mouths or from the typing that they contribute to the feedback form. And they just like it. They like that quicker feedback loop.
So let's pause real quick. You're telling me that people that work at Dairyland who are frontline individual contributors, teammates, are saying they actually appreciate reviews. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. So I actually, and I did this after, so we did our first review cycle in Leadr in January. And then, like I said, we just wrapped up round 2. And after both of those cycles, I sent out a feedback request from Leadr. It's optional, but kind of what do you like about reviews? You can comment on questions, content, process.
Sure.
And what other ideas and opportunities do you see? What other feedback do you have? And it's just great because you're not having to mind read. You get ideas you never would have thought of.
Right.
And I think it's helpful too to hear employees name for themselves, hey, I like this. This is actually different than it was before. And this is bringing value. And there's agency because I can contribute an idea that I have or something I noticed that's a gap area. But lots of positive responses on having them and having that clarity.
Nice. Well, let's continue that piece of the conversation then. So the next question I had, it's like you knew it was coming or something, but what should the conversation look like? So as it relates to reviews, what types of questions are you asking? What topics do you not talk about? What do you do once the review is complete? Like, tell us a little bit about how you, like, tactically, what should the conversation look like? Do you use sliding scale? Do you use free form? Do you have open reviews? Do you have closed reviews? So maybe all of the juicy details of maybe some of the form and function of what those conversations should look like could be really helpful for the group here.
Sure. Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'm going to back up just a wee little bit.
Oh, please do.
Kind of setting them up. So
yeah, of course.
I don't know. It would be interesting to kind of poll the group who has joined us, but we have reviews at the same time every year, and they always catch up to us. It's suddenly, oh, it's review time again. And so just like a helpful tip that has saved me. Oh, good. Yes, I'm not alone. That's always comforting.
Yeah, 3 exclamation points even on it. Yeah.
Is just setting a reminder for yourself. All right, it is time to roll this out. It's time to communicate with the team. We try to do refreshers at least annually, but not too far before the performance review to be really clear about our performance model. How do we measure? So is that
with the managers or is that with the entire company?
We do it company-wide.
Okay.
Yep. And then with our manager group, we have a doc that outlines all of our internal dates. By this day, you're going to have your review, your self-assessment in Leadr. By this date, you're going to have had your one-on-one. I can talk more about what those pieces mean, but just trying to create a clear plan for us, for the team, communicate it proactively so that they know how to be prepared. Because there's some stress that can go along with a performance review, even if you do a lot to minimize anxiety. I think it's human to be a little bit anxious.
Sure.
So in terms of once we're kind of ready to have the review process start, for us, we do an open review. So all employees complete a self-assessment, and we have about 5 questions. We ask really a summarizing question. How would you summarize your last 6 months? It's an opportunity to talk about some themes, about maybe some external factors that impacted the experience. And then we go a little bit more into your performance. What did you set out to accomplish? What are you most proud of? And I love this question. It's a newer question. Side note, you can evolve your questions. Just because you start with a certain set of questions doesn't mean you have to keep them forever, which was very freeing to me.
Yeah, you can like iterate and improve and like try new things. You don't have to, just because we've always done reviews this one specific way for the past 25 years, you don't have to keep doing them that way. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
That's what I'm saying. And the people, I have evidence and data to support this. They say, I like the questions we're asking. They're clearer. I feel like I have an opportunity to share what really mattered to me. So just this morning, someone in the feedback request said, I like that I can answer the question, what I'm most proud of, because I felt like that has been missed in prior reviews. And it makes sense.
That's so
right?
good.
The
You're
manager
right.
may have one lens of what is successful, what they really wanted to see from that employee. And the employee may have has something else that they worked so hard on, or deeply invested in, and it doesn't even show up in the review.
Right.
So it's a great.
That's so good, Kaylee. So that question, what are you most proud of over this last 6 months or this last period of time? Yeah, that's a great question.
Then we ask one on development. How did you set out to grow and develop? How are you doing on your development goals and activities? We talk about
pause real quick.
Sure.
Pause real quick on development. So I know in talking to you that the questions you ask are really, I believe they're around 3 different categories, right? So it's kind of like performance or outcomes. There's the culture pieces that you ask about, but then for you all, development is actually an essential piece of how you win in your role, right? Am I recalling this correctly?
Yeah, you're right on. And I would
tell us
say
more.
That is a little bit newer as well. In the last 5 years, we've really been trying to grow a development and growth mindset kind of throughout the organization. And so we actually require individual development time. That is, there's so much flexibility on what you're working toward, how you're working toward it. But the idea is that we are all growing, every role. And so we define performance as results plus behaviors plus development in alignment with our mission, vision, and values.
Okay, so say that again real quick for the people in the back. I want to make sure they hear it. So for you all, you define success as
results plus behaviors plus development in alignment with our mission, vision, and values.
So good. It's really, I mean, there's freedom in that, but there's also clarity in that. It's really, really good. Yeah. Sorry, keep going. I feel like I'm just fanboying the things that you're saying. So please keep going. Stay the course. Stay the course.
Stop me if I'm, going too fast or hanging out on a topic too long. So just to continue through some of the questions we asked, we have been playing around with one that's related to our core values. So we ask, which one, you got to pick one of the core values do you feel like you really exemplified in this last 6-month period? And then we have a final question that is really summarizing, kind of based on everything that has shown up, that you've elaborated on, that you've spoken to. What do you feel like your focus for this next 6-month period is? So I think to another part of the question you asked initially, what we don't want to have happen is for there to be any surprises. So once you submit your self-assessment, your manager can see that. They then submit responses to those same questions about you. But you don't want to walk into a review and go, I've never heard this before. This is totally new information. So
have you walked into one of those reviews before?
I am sure that I have.
You tried to bury it so deep that you don't have to think about it ever.
It's probably repressed. Like I would need to talk to your wife to surface that.
It's just not fun.
It's not fun. And it feels, I think to that, going back to your point about robbing, I think it feels like you're caught. And you're robbed of an opportunity to work on something and show progress and development. And we don't want reviews to feel like a time where you're just caught for everything. And so my hope in the questions that we ask is that it offers a lot of opportunity to celebrate success and feature accomplishments, but also kind of draw out those themes that are showing up that feed into growth and development and change for the future. So it's kind of jointly owned. There's a lot of onus on the employee to share. And I think it feels different to be able to offer information than just like, so for example, for an employee to be able to say, hey, here's what I think I did really well. I know I messed up on this, or I know I did not deliver this
Sure.
on plan, on budget, in scope.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just feels different than seeing it first come from my manager. You didn't deliver on time, on budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
it creates a sense of autonomy and ownership from the person, to be able to show up differently in those conversations versus, to your point earlier of, well, yeah, I mean, we both know you got caught on blank and blank and blank, and this didn't go right and this didn't go right, but I saw this go well, versus them being really able to reflect, to share where they've won, and also share where they see opportunities to grow. I know as someone who leads people that those conversations, when the person that you are partnering with to help them grow and develop, when they are consistently thinking about, here's where I'm at, here's where I can grow, here's where I can improve, here's what I'm paying attention to, here's what I'm seeing, like that's such a different opportunity to lead, because it's like they're running and you're just working to help make sure they stay on track, versus someone where it feels like you're constantly having to pull you along or to help you see these things. And because of the focus for you all on development and this growth mindset being something that you focus on, it'd be hard for someone that isn't reflecting or bringing those things to the table to be successful there, right?
Yeah, it's true. It does sort of self-select for that, or help people discern for themselves, is this the right fit for me? Yeah.
Okay, well, good stuff. I have a couple questions next. So one of them is like, okay, reviews happened. What happens now? So that's the one we're going to talk about. And then the one that we're going to get to right after that is, what about the ones that they're the not so fun reviews? It's, it's a review with somebody who's maybe on an improvement plan, or someone who you've been engaged in coaching conversations where it's like we're consistently not hitting the mark. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But after you do a review, so after you've aligned it around what you all determined to be successful, and asked the questions and given opportunities for both the manager and the employee to speak into it, what happens to like close out the review, and what do you do with it next?
Yeah. And I think this is probably an area where we have the most opportunity for growth. Okay. So, I mean, I may be on this webinar, but just want to normalize, learning and growing constantly. So I think in an ideal situation, you are not just being really intentional about having a great review, you're thoughtful about your responses, you're having a one-on-one conversation to unpack the responses, but you're then taking that into the future. If the feedback is just exposed and nothing's done with it, it's a bit of a waste. I mean, someone could choose to run with that personally, and props to them, but I think that we want to surface that for another purpose. So, I think this then really reinforces the power of one-on-ones, saying, hey, in light of everything we talked about, how could we tweak your development goals, or what experiences do you need to move you a little bit closer to that goal of clear public speaking or interpersonal conflict navigation, or whatever it is. And so I'm actually this week preparing to send out kind of a communication to our leaders, because we're trying to increase our intentionality to just set an expectation and a goal of having a follow-up within the next 2 weeks that translate to kind of tangible plans, but happen in those one-on-ones, so that employees feel like there is that progress. That too might be a little bit uncomfortable for this. Will maybe merge into our next question. But I think that even if you're talking about something hard, you don't want to stay there. Generally, you want to grow, you want it to get better, you want that level of stress of that being surfaced to lower. And you want the sense of agency too. So I think that can be really empowering too. Yeah, it's the helpful to surface the things, right? So doing the review is great, but then what do we do with it now? How do we implement the feedback? How do we focus on growth and development, so that the next time we get to a review, we can see clear growth from where we were, what the challenge was, to what the next place is, right? Okay, so now
let's get into the one. This is why everybody signed up. Okay, they wanted to hear the chatter about this one. But let's talk about the not so fun reviews. So the reviews that you're connecting with somebody and reviewing somebody who is on a performance improvement plan, or you're just expecting the conversation to not go well. Talk to us a little bit about what do you do in those scenarios? How do you best prepare? Any horror stories with names changed? I'm just kidding. But yeah, anything that you want to share about, how to handle not so fun reviews?
Yeah, well, I think by definition, they're not fun. And I know I've mentioned, anxiety already in this webinar, but I think there is a lot about managing our own anxiety. I'm super side comment, super interested in kind of, maybe I'll have to schedule a coffee with your wife to talk about internal family systems, but just how we can be anxious if we are the ones participating in either role in a review. And we can also then project that. And so I think if you are the manager or supervisor, really getting in touch with, how am I doing going into this this review? And it doesn't mean everything's going to go away just by naming kind of that internal state, but I think that it is powerful. And even to think about what's the best outcome that could happen versus sort of future tripping. This is going to go terrible. They might freak out. I think it's really easy to think about the negative side, but what about the positive side? What if this is actually an aha moment? Not new info, but maybe it becomes clearer in some way. Right. We have someone on our team who is just amazing at hard conversations. This person has a peaceful presence. They have this view of clear belief in people and their ability to grow, and can deliver hard things clearly. I would imagine we have folks from all over the country, maybe beyond. And in the Midwest, where I grew up, we love tiptoeing around topics and issues.
And also taking forever to leave places too, right? Like I say goodbye and then I'm going to hang out at the door for a while and say goodbye some more. And then I'll probably step outside and say goodbye some more. So it's like, we can't just leave. But anyway, yes. And
what connects those two is that it goes on and on and on and on. And so I think, just to be clear, I think it's Brene Brown who says clear is kind. And so can we be really kind and really clear, even if it's uncomfortable? It's better for the person on the other side, even if it's a little bit more uncomfortable. And just, it might be helpful to do some kind of role playing on your own.
That's what I was going to say.
Talk to the mirror, or have a safe person that you can just practice saying the words, maybe even get some feedback on your delivery. So those are a few initial thoughts. What would you say, or how would you fill in some of those gaps I left?
Yeah, those are good. Those are like assessing your own internal environment, what you're bringing to the table, I think is really helpful. Doing role plays, whether it's, you to the mirror or you with somebody that can help provide feedback and hold up a mirror for you, so to speak, is really, really helpful. Some other things I want to make sure we mention and that you noted is the goal here is you're for the person. Like, you're for their growth and development. This isn't you trying to be punitive. This isn't you trying to find ways to like backlash or any of those things connected. It's all about, we are for you and we want to help you grow and develop. And because of that motivation, the conversation can start from a very different place. So I think sometimes even just stating things like, hey, this may just be me, but walking into this review, just saying these things out loud, just walking into this review, I really care about your growth and development. And as I was preparing for this review, what I recognized is there's some hard things that we need to have some conversations about inside of this review. And I just want to say there's going to be some things we're talking about that might be difficult. And let's get into them. I want to be as clear as possible. Something else that's really helpful in these not so fun reviews is when you can moderate the dynamics of your tone and your presence and just how you're communicating, so that it's not that it's weak, but it's just really clear and very like Chris Voss talks about, like late night DJ voice, right? So just this ability just to speak in a really calm and clear way, so that you can engage the conflict as well as possible. And it just communicates care. It communicates those things that we've been talking about. So that's one of those things. Another thing is ensure that you're detaching the person from the problem or the thing that you're trying to solve, or the challenge that's happening, right? So I think sometimes, two different ways to talk about that. Sometimes let's say I'm talking with you, Kaylee, and I'm like, hey, Kaylee, you consistently I use really not helpful language, and I accuse you of these characteristics versus actually talking about the challenge. So be like, you're just a lazy person who never shows up on time, who consistently doesn't deliver. That, like, these are very character attribute, personal focused things that only create a posture of defensiveness. They are not helpful in communicating I'm actually for you, because what I'm saying is I'm not in what I'm communicating. So if I can say things, there's a book called Radical Candor, which big fan of, love it. But what it talks about is in this situation, I noticed this behavior with this impact. And it's literally, it's like it's taking the behavior or the impact or the thing that you're trying to talk about, and it's separating it where you're both looking at it over here and saying, here's what I'm observing. Can we talk about that? And then we're trying to solve this problem. We're trying to engage this problem, versus I'm angry at you. You aren't good enough. Like all of these internalized messages or things that are connected to character attribution that are not helpful or are not true. And so I found that to be, when I do it well, something that's helpful, of really separating the challenge or the obstacle that we're trying to overcome from the person.
So good. If you see me looking down, it's just because I'm jotting down notes. I just love what you said, and not having it become an identity thing, that you are
right. Yes.
In your identity flawed and broken and unable to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
I would have a ton of agency after hearing that, right?
Yeah. So those are some thoughts. What about I'd be curious to hear, anybody in the chat, if you want to drop some notes in, like, how do you handle not so fun reviews? Part of it too, Kaylee, honestly, is I've learned a lot by doing things wrong. So one of the things is I want to be nice, not kind. So kind of like the Midwest thing that you said of, well, nice nice can sound like this to people. We love you. 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 You're fired, right? Like it can be, It's like, wait, everything was great. What happened? How did we get here? Versus kind, which is, hey, actually, it's not okay that you showed up late. Can we talk about it? And addressing the problem, but not accusing them of some identity that isn't actually them, right? So finding the balance between being nice and kind is something that is helpful. Another thing I've noticed is that, I'm interested, Jane. Let's get to that here. We're about to get to
I got drawn right in.
I know. Another thing is just to be clear and specific. So sometimes it is okay to have a conversation that says, hey, I'm noticing or observing some things, and you're trying to pull a thread because you're looking to understand. So it can be a bit of I'm noticing some symptoms, or this is like this isn't a fully formed thought. I just want to explore this with you and seek to understand. That's a different conversation than this happened. It's not okay. I observed it, in this situation with this behavior and this impact. We need to talk about it. So being really clear and specific in those moments, and not being so ambiguous or nebulous or unclear, because it's almost worse than not getting the feedback. Because you're like, well, how, when, how can I improve? Help, like you're trying to get handles, right? Of like, what do I actually do with that? Or what are you actually implying or meaning? And so if you can't, as a leader, be clear about, here's what I saw and here's how we need to improve, or we need to find a path forward together, it's just not, it's even more confusing to the person. So thoughts or reflections on that before let's kick it off with Jane's question and get to Q&A. But anything else before we hop into just Q&A time here as we spend the rest of it?
Maybe just that, I think we can worry that trust is going to be compromised in more direct, feedback conversations. But I think it's just the opposite. I think when this person is going to tell me the truth, even when it's hard, they're going to tell me the truth when I do well. They're going to tell me the truth when I bust through a boundary, intentional or not. I would say in my own experience and from others, it feels safer. And that makes our teams and our organizations a better environment, healthy environment to be in. So yeah.
Okay. Super helpful. Okay, let's click over. We'll click to the actual slide Q&A. But Jane, all right, let's read this together. So on the flip side, how do you handle the conversation when the employee is essentially a rock star? So they do 10 things right, but they beat themselves up for the one thing they didn't do, or get really defensive because you overlooked the 10 great things and then and the one not so great thing. So I have some ideas, but I'd be curious to get your take on this, Kaylee. What do you do with the people who are the rock stars, who are absolutely crushing it, but can't get over the one thing that they thought they did wrong, or actually didn't knock it out of the park on?
Yeah, I think for the group that maybe focuses on or ends up beating themselves up, I do wonder if there is just opportunity to grow that competency of confidence. I mean, I think, man, there's so much room for praising, for celebrating them, for recognizing them in a way that resonates with them. But I also wonder what it could look like for that person to really own where they're excelling and succeeding, not to become arrogant, but to really walk in their competence and potentially even reach more potential than they thought they were capable of. On the other side, one of the things that we try to set our managers up to do is think about the amount of time they spend on topics. So for this hypothetical person who is the rock star, they do 10 things right, one thing wrong. If you spend 5 minutes on the 10 things they did right and 15 on the thing they did wrong, it feels like that thing they did wrong is really big. It's taking up a lot of space, a lot of time. It's what you're emphasizing. So even being mindful of how much time you dedicate to those and the words around both of those things. And I think holding an ampersand, that two things can be true at one time. It's really easy to default into, I'm either all good or all bad. And is there a way to recognize you can be really good at all these things and there can be a growth area, and that doesn't diminish the good?
Totally true. One of our co-founders, he says, maturity is the ability to hold two seemingly opposed ideas in each hand. To your point, right? So it's like, and for most people, the things that they excel in, that are like their natural genius, the things that they crush, there's always a dark side, or a shadow side to those things that typically is a spot where it's like, that's the thing you're weakest at, that's the thing that we need to work on. So it's like, how do we emphasize and grow and leverage these places of strength, and also how do we continue to grow in these areas here? As someone who has an exceptionally strong inner critic, so Jane, I don't know if you're like asking, I could do a million things right and then be like, but I blew it on this thing. I naturally look for, where did I mess up? How can I improve? Here's what went wrong. Here's how we can optimize blank. So there's great strengths in that, because I can evaluate things quickly and understand, here's the areas to improve and grow. But what I often don't give myself credit for is, hey, here's what's going well, or here's what's going right. And it is, I've grown in that, because I know that that's not the most helpful thing. But I've literally had leaders or supervisors of mine say, hey, Dan, they'll ask for, hey, how do you think that went? And I'll immediately start with, here's what didn't go well. And they'll be like, nope, you have to name at least, 1, 2, 3 things that went well. And we're not even engaging this piece of the conversation until we actually talk through those. And I'll literally be like, well, least favorite part, but fine, here's what it is. This went really well. This went really well. This went really well. Okay, let's talk more about those. And we spend intentional time here because it's okay to celebrate what goes well.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
And we all have areas to improve. So I've had to grow a ton personally in how what narratives I play, or what like soundtracks or mixtapes, for those who knows what those are, in my brain, and what narrative I pay attention to. And you got to hold both, right? There are
That's
things
really
that are going
good.
well, and there are things that are not. So good questions. Let's see here. Is that a Groove Life ring? I don't know what that is, but I want one now. I don't know what it is. No, it's just
I'm curious.
if you're talking about my wedding band, it's just a silicone band. But Kaylee, talk for a minute. I need to Google what a
Well,
Groove
I was
Life
going to
ring
do the
is.
same thing.
Yeah, I
We
don't know
need
what it
answers.
is, but I'm super interested. Oh, Groove is
Ooh.
where I work.
Very cool.
Got it. Well, I will talk while Kaylee looks that up and sends you a message, Karen.
Hey, these look great.
Nice.
Love it very
I'll have
much.
to check it out. I will have to check it out.
I was just going to say, I think we are welcome to more questions too. So if you have a burning question.
Yeah, Corinne, I for sure am going to send you a note. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Okay. Let's chat here through, let's talk through like format of questions. So maybe that's one to talk through, Kaylee. So we've talked through a lot of like philosophical, we've also talked through a lot of tactical pieces, but when you're asking questions, are yours all free form? Are there some that are like on a Likert scale? Do you mix those up intentionally? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, great question. So we have historically done kind of open form questions.
Okay.
We haven't done any rating scales exactly. I'll give a little caveat. So, and I think that might be an interesting area for us to move into. And I'd love to hear if you have worked with other organizations that are using that and finding that valuable. We do a bit of a manager assessment on a kind of 10-point scale to just assess where is this employee at in terms of the expectations of the role, that kind of results and behaviors weighting. And I think that we could do more to have transparency about that. That was another piece of feedback I got even earlier today, which was, I would love to have more clarity about even a number to, not to just identify myself on in a negative way, but to understand how can I grow that? Where am I really falling on this kind of spectrum of competency and mastery?
Yeah. Really helpful. I think like a question we get asked here often is, are you winning? And what that reveals is, if what winning looks like isn't clearly defined, then we need to clearly define it. So to your earlier point of like success equals these pieces in alignment with our vision and values, great. Okay, well then what does that tactically look like, outcome wise, or mastery or competency, or those sorts of things? And so knowing if you're winning is great, and it helps you look where you can grow. Okay. Quick couple questions. Mike, we have inside of our tool in lots of different places, there's a templates category. So inside of that, we effectively curate all sorts of templates that we have come across, that we've created because we spend a lot of time in this area. So you can access quite a few templates in that space. And then the other side of that is, and Kaylee, maybe, I assume you all probably have this, but where it says, in your case, it says Dairyland, you actually can create your own templates, so you don't have to recreate them every time. And then it's really easy to utilize inside of those. But Mike, connect with your CSM. They'd be happy to walk you through that specifically. And then we're like right at time. So let's answer Jane's question. Let's see here. How do you balance doing your own work and prepping for reviews? So how much time do you recommend each manager spend preparing?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it will depend on how many direct reports you have. We try For self-assessments, we try to don't spend more than 45 minutes on your assessment, just to try to kind of scope it. I would say I can have a hard time doing that, to be honest with you. It's one of those things I can overthink, and I would imagine a lot of folks on our team do as well. But the other benefit of having a self-assessment is that it's easier for the manager to look at that data and figure out, oh, it's missing this, or I can pull in this and I can affirm a lot of what's already said. So maybe another tip for efficiency. Maybe not super clear.
Yeah, your note about how many direct reports is important. The other thing is there's actually, for those who have Leadr, we effectively have a new reflections dashboard that just went live. So you can pull, and this answers maybe some of Bob's question too, but you can actually pull bookmark pieces from one-on-ones, goals, feedback, learning, et cetera, into the review. So you can actually say, well, as I look back over the course of this past 6 months or whatever, I'm choosing these mile markers, these reflections of where I've succeeded, how I've grown, et cetera. And then when you get to that moment of the review where you memorialize that moment, you're able to point objectively and tactically back to some of those pieces. So anywho, we're at time. So we got to stop. Okay. So we're going to pause and be done with the conversation. But Kaylee, sincerely, thank you so much for taking time to prepare for this, and then also just taking an hour out of your day to share your practical experience, your wisdom, some of the things that you all do and what you've learned in the process. Really appreciate you and the time that you spent with us, and you're the best. So thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having me. I feel like the lucky one. I'm walking away with gold. So
there you go. There you go. All right. Well, you're great. Thanks everyone who attended and who's watching, and we'll catch you next time. All right. See ya.
Thanks all.